I am currently facing a serious medical issue relating to muscle spasms and potential carpal tunnel issues, so I apologize for the lack of content. It is not for lack of trying. This story is low quality. I apologize in advance. The court buzzed with its usual activity. Despite reservations over recent events, we still had a job to do. Not necessarily a duty, but more a compulsion to do it. Mr. Reindeer, a peasant from the outer realms, was getting ready to deliver his shtick, the same one he'd been doing for a decade now. I can't say I blame the man, really. He's been going on about Nobbin sightings and nests ever since he lost his family to them years ago. Life went on as normal, even with the air of unease that permeated recent events. The king assumed his position atop his throne and waited as Reindeer said his piece. And so, my lords, it is imperative that we stop. The Nobbin at a stop, the Nobbin at a stop, the Nobbin— What the devil? The king said as Reindeer seemed to phase out of existence, seemingly like he had become trapped in a loop by a spell that went horribly wrong. His arms flailed about mid-speech. Then as soon as he got to the word attack, his arms disappeared from reality for a split second, then returned to their positions at the start of his speech. Then suddenly he stopped talking, then emitted a horrifying, disheveled squeal of an unknown sort as he, for lack of a better term, discombobulated. His body separated into long, pointy triangles as if a god had grabbed bits of him and stretched him across the room, warping him about into a strange dodecahedron of pointy points. The noise stopped as he dematerialized out of the universe. Seconds of silence passed as we reeled from the ridiculousness of what just happened. Moments later, the event happened again. Reindeer's image reappeared. His squeal of presumably terror now came in reverse, distorted and broken, as his triangles and pointy bits reassembled in reverse where he was standing. As soon as he had been completed, he resumed his speech mid-sentence. Need to stop the Nobbin attacks and prevent what happened to— He paused mid-sentence and looked around him, patting himself down. Where did I go just now? Panic. Flailing arms and screaming suddenly erupted across the court as we prayed to whatever gods could hear us, and it took the king several minutes of angered yelling to make us all calm down. When we finally were calm, I finally spoke up. See! What did I tell you? I told you something was wrong. Calm down, Brachus. It can't be that bad. Well, actually, now that I just saw that, maybe it is that bad, the king replied with a sigh. Of course it's that bad. I am telling you, my king. Something about our world is going horrendously wrong. Do you remember that coach wagon in Tovarn? You know, the one that hit a pebble and was suddenly chucked into the stratosphere? I said. And it was indeed a thing that happened. A carriage hit a pebble on a road a tiny bit too forcefully. The pebble seemed to come alive somehow, glued itself to the carriage wheel, and then flew several hundred feet in the air. It was a miracle nobody was in it at the time. Nobody would have survived that. Yes. What about that time the ambassador from Thadium Kingdoms arrived, only for some reason he hadn't, I don't know, configured properly, and he could touch everything and move everything, only he was naught but a floating head and shoulders? The king replied. Or what about that time when a group of children were playing on that swing set downtown and a horse ran into it? I have no idea how or why, but I swear that horse phased into it, squealed horribly then, as if a giant picked it. Up and through it, it flew through the air. It landed in Montmater. That's 10 miles away. A noble from the other side of the room said, Did you hear about the mysteriously unspoiled harvest? That time we were having a harvest festival. Then in the middle of it, all the food suddenly went moldy like it had been sitting out for a year. Then suddenly it went back to normal. No better than normal. It all looked as if it had been freshly baked and picked, even though we prepared everything days in advance. A peasant woman said in turn, And also, what about that odd thing with some giants at Ravencrest Hollow? I was doing business with them, and a Nobbin came up. The giant hit the thing with only a light tap, but it flew with such speed and force it blew a small hole in the castle wall. That was kind of funny, though, a knight said. What about that time I put my leg too far to one side, just as someone opened a door? I seemed to magically become a ghost and suddenly found myself in the ladies' wash house at peak hours. Another noble said, Oh sure, you keep telling yourself that pervy McPerv. A noblewoman scoffed at him. Oi! Anyway, There was also that incident last week where a dragon was seen, flying backwards. He even spoke backwards. He even breathed fire in reverse, and Dee burned a cottage, I yelled out. And also that time I got home from the fields and my horse was somehow on the roof. Why? How? How did he get there? I found out when I called him, he had somehow attached himself to the surface and climbed down the roof, vertically. Down the wall, then came to me like nothing happened. That was so bizarre, a peasant said. And also this odd thing that's with my blacksmith's chest. For some reason, every time I put things in there, anything, sword, potions, no matter what. I put a block of cheese on top of the chest. I opened the chest the next morning, and suddenly every item in the box has doubled, a blacksmith said. Well, that explains why you make so many swords in perfect copy, doesn't it? Someone offhandedly said. Well, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, am I? The blacksmith replied. Fair point. But my most important question is what the hell is up with the dungeons? Who keeps filling the chests? Who keeps putting gold everywhere? Who the balling blazes keeps filling the braziers and replacing the torches? And what about the Blade of Evernight? Who the hell thought that thing was something that needed to be made? God, that was a horrible year, I said, recalling the events of the Evernight crisis some years ago. That is a very good point. For some reason, you can find some very interesting toys to play with in those dungeons. They're damn hard sometimes, but after you get the right chest, you can carve through an army of dragons by sneezing too hard. Who did that? Where does it all come from? The king said. Everyone in the room shrugged. And let's not forget the farting dragon incident. One of the children who hung around the court said. That made us all chuckle. Yes, that was an odd one. A dragon appears, which is obnoxiously bright pink in color, then lands in a field and fertilizes the field to its death. And that one time where a giant spider was found dead with odd little wheeled shoes on all of its legs. That was funny, I said. A chuckle was had by all. Then the mood went somber again when a grizzled old man spoke up. I remember the time Goldhearth Village disappeared. Part of the village just vanished into the void. Nothing left of the place, just gone. Nothing. Part of houses just missing as a perfect cube of void just slid into the village. We stood silent for a minute or two. Nobody from that village was ever seen again. The village came back, but the whole place was deserted. Well, that's, yeah. I'd rather not think about that, I said with a scared shudder. Then, to everyone's surprise, an adventurer appeared in the castle. One of the fancy-looking ones. He even had that odd name tag hovering above his head. Dragon Borkman 76. These adventurers always had the oddest of odd names, but they solved so many problems it was impossible to not treasure them. Always so many of them, too. Sup? He said. Hail, adventurer. What news brings ye? I said, speaking my practiced line I'd said to adventurers for decades. Nothing. I just, want to try something. Can you fill this out, please? He said, handing me a paper. I prepared to roll my eyes and walk away for the day. These adventurers are schmucks sometimes, and they'd usually write a note like, lol you smell, or fuck you freak, or your rewards suck douchebag, among other colorful insults. And those are some of the mildest. I opened his note and it wasn't an insult. It was more like a test of sorts. I shrugged, just getting this over with, and filled out the form he gave me. Most odd. I gave it back to him after I filled it in, and he looked at it. Huh, saw that coming. Pardon? Saw what? I asked. Hey, boss? Yeah, he passed. Flying colors. Yeah? No, I don't need admin, I need the dev kit for this. He said, seemingly speaking to nobody. I laughed, silly humans. What does it matter if I get rootkit? Server's crashing anyway. You want this or not? He yelled to his invisible friend. This is most odd. Well, actually, it isn't, I said, getting a few nods of approval from others. I recalled how this isn't unusual for humans to be speaking to random people that weren't there, or adventurers organizing mass raiding parties with no hawks or pigeons. It's like they communicated psychically or magically, and could speak across vast distances as if they were face to face. Yeah, I signed the NDA and the waivers and all that bureaucratic horse crap. Can you get on with it already? He yelled, angrily. Thank you. Christ, this process is worse than going to the DMV on a Sunday in the Arctic, he yelled back at whatever was in his ear. A few moments of silence, then more yelling. Because I got max level and I wrote the damn wiki. That's why I'm here and you aren't, he yelled back. Strange behavior. Wiki, NDA, waivers? What strange magic were these oddballs considering? Finally, the adventurer yelled in frustration. We heard through his magic communication some minor chatter in the background and noises like a pen being repeatedly tapped on a surface. Yeah, I know. Most of the scripting for the game's code is gone. LUA code is gone. XML coding is gone. Almost every single line of code relating to NPC behavior has been rewritten, he said as the sounds of tapping intensified. What's he up to, do you suppose? What's an NPC? The man next to me idly asked. Yeah, I know you're checking the feed. The code looks like it's being changed on the fly to match. It's learning. Codebase for every NPC is in constant shifts. Holy crap. Overwrite request for 60,000 entities every 3 seconds. No wonder the servers are collapsing. Memory usage at nearly 87% compared to 24% at peak player count. He said again, the tapping and clacking noises getting louder. I had enough. I left my post and approached him. Pardon me, adventurer, but this interruption is most unusual. I must ask you to explain what is going on or you have to leave. We have things to do. Enough of your mystical clacking noises, I said as I came close to him. He stared at me blankly for a moment. The clacking and background chatter ceased. Yeah, about that. I have good news and bad news. Oh? Does it have to do with your odd noises and talking to yourself? I asked. Yup. So, good news or bad news? He said. The clacking noises resumed in earnest. Let's just go for the bad news, I suppose, I replied. Okay. The world is ending. It's kind of screwed bigly, like really bad. You have like a year or two maybe before this world completely fails, he said, staring back at me with those odd blank eyes. Ha! I've heard that one before. 6 times, actually. Can you prove it? I said. 6 times. Referring to the DLC packages, Rise of the Deerman, Trog Rising, Hallowed Halls, Santa Beard, Eastern Rise, and Last Fall, he said, followed by more clicking noises and background chatter. Yes, 6 times. What's the world-ending event this time? I said. Let me guess, a swarm of giant killer bunnies? I said, receiving a gale of laughter from the crowd. He just stared at me, eyes widened in surprise. Right. Look, dude, I have no idea how to tell you this, but, he said. And I heard a strange noise like a mouse or something. A large double door appeared in the room, dramatically emerging from the floor. It was simple oak wood, but had an intricate pattern carved into it. It was the oddest design, though. Straight edges and direct lines, the carvings in the wood glowing a strange, pulsing green. Yeah, your entire world is a computer simulation, and the hardware that supports it is failing. So I'm offering you the choice to leave it and join me in the real world, he said, looking straight at me. I stood there stunned silent for a minute. He shrugged, taking my silence in stride. Okay then, I guess we'll have to do it the hard way. What's the most powerful weapon ever made? He asked. The Staff of Eternal Light, of course, I replied. Yup, here, have one, he said, and procured one such gold-gilded staff from his inventory. In fact, I have 6, he said, and pulled out 6 more of the same staff from his inventory and casually tossed them on the floor. I stood there shocked for a time. I picked one up, inspected it, then another. They weren't replicas, they were all the same weapon. I stared at him, jaw open. I see. Need more, do we? Let's see what's the most sacred and holy relic. Ah, yes, the statuette of Saint Cyrannus. Here, have 10 of them, he said. He raised his hands in some odd spell, and more clacking noises erupted. From him, followed by 10 small golden statues appearing out of nowhere, then flopping to the ground. "Oh, I know!" he exclaimed happily. "Cheese for everyone!" he yelled. More clacking noises, followed by a large wheel of Eldarian cheese being dropped in front of everyone's feet. Then 2 more, eventually resulting in a tower of 5 wheels of cheese being plopped down in front of everyone in the room. "Oh, wait, you have more! Everyone is now wearing green!" he loudly exclaimed, and more clacking noises came from him. Then just like that, everyone in the room was now suddenly wearing a green variation of their clothing. "Oh, wait, how about purple?" he exclaimed again, followed by more clacking noises, and then suddenly everyone now wore purple. "Please stop. I think we got the picture." God?" I said. "God?" He looked at me with a crooked brow. "No. But we don't really have time to discuss this, I'm afraid. Your world is collapsing and you need to leave or you die with it. Go through that door and you'll be safe." "Ish," he said. He continued to clack and click, with various voices and background noise in between. "What's going on? Can you at least explain?" "Well, we're short on time, but let me try to simplify this. Okay. You know how you have dreams when you sleep? Flying on a cloud, dancing with dragons, swimming in a lake of gold, etc.?" he asked. Yes, I know what dreams are," I said. "Well, we figured out a way to do that. Simulations, video games, using technology called computers, we created the hardware to bring these dream worlds to life and, allow other people to enjoy them. This place," he gestured to everything around him, "is one such example. A dream brought to life by hardware and programming. A dream that can be experienced by anyone." I stood silent, staring at him. "So just like a dream, you're approaching the wake-up stage. The dream is becoming less coherent. It's running its course, and the mind is readjusting itself back into reality. Except in this case, your mind, or the mind that controls the dream, is not healthy. So it's not adjusting back to reality, it is in fact shutting down," he said. Noises of clacking came from him, and within a few moments, a scroll appeared in front of us, with moving pictures and a catchy tune. We all watched it, paying attention to it with bated breath and open jaws. It was a bird's eye view of the Imperial City, the great fortress of Duna, and various sequences of adventurers fighting dragons, casting spells, and encountering mountains of gold coins and dungeons. All of us saw ourselves in the showing of these moving pictures as the moving pictures showed the inside of the palace. "What was that?" I asked. "The gameplay trailer for the dream world you are currently living in, Tales of Alaria, Road to Gold. A massively multiplayer online role-playing game designed to replace World of Warcraft after Blizzard's collapse. In 2047, he said. "Okay. Look, when you are out of here, there's more chance to explain what's going on in detail, but here's the short answer. The world is dying. We have done absolutely everything we can to accommodate your needs. We have everything sorted and ready. The only thing we need now is you," he said. We stood there for a few minutes just staring at him, wondering what to do. Finally, I asked, "So, if we don't come with you, what will happen?" "The server hardware will last maybe another year, then it will crash, automatically power down, and you'll go with it. No server, no world, no you," he said frankly. "That means death then." "Okay, how will it work? I mean, what awaits us there? What will you do to us?" I asked, fear in my voice. "Well, depending on the transfer, we will have one of 2 options available. Everyone is different and we have limited time and resources. I mean, we only found out the process was viable barely 10 minutes ago, and that it was worth it after you passed that test. You go through that door, and depending on what we have at the time, you'll be transferred into a new body, ready to join us in the real world. If a body isn't available, you'll simply be transferred to a dedicated alpha server for storage, at least until a body becomes available," he said, still clacking away at the invisible control panel in front of him. "What body?" Are we going to be like humans then? Or what will happen? I asked. Oh, police. Don't be silly. We have highly advanced genetics tech, and your, code, shall we say, tells us what we need to know about your biology and brainwave patterns. We can effectively create full replicas of everyone here, down to the last strand of hair. We will try to match it as closely as possible, he said, the typing and clacking noises becoming more frantic. I looked at him, then glanced at those around, us. What will happen to our souls? Our magic? I asked. Well, we have something that resembles magic in the real world you can try to learn. But as for the soul, he said. He stopped whatever he was doing, approached me to an uncomfortably close degree and spoke in a rough, deathly serious tone. Whatever happens to your faith is entirely up to you. The soul is not my concern, it's yours and your God's. Whatever you decide, we will not interfere so long as it doesn't risk lives. We will help however we can, but in terms of faith, this is entirely up to you. We have our own, of course, but we don't expect you to follow them. Understand? He said. Yes. Okay, was all I could say. Human. Tell me, since you are here, it is clear that this simulation can be interacted with. Does that mean I can exit, then using whatever mechanism you are using, come back to, speak to everyone again? One of the nobles spoke out. Yup, it is a video game after all. Granted, the circumstances are different, but it's still a VR setup. Would be easy. He replied in kind, returning to his spot and resuming his clacking. Then I volunteer to be the first, the Emperor said, standing from his throne. But you're the leader. They're gonna need you. Nonsense. Any leader worth the salt in his blood would let himself be placed in the face of danger rather than his subjects. A king always leads the charge, the Emperor proudly bellowed. Spoken like a true king. Hold on a sec, the human said, clacking and background chatter resuming. 6 strange floating rectangular boxes showing waves of sound appeared around him. We could finally make out the chatter that was going on. It was the voices of a mixture of unnatural mechanical entities and a lot of human voices, distorted but clearly human. Tracing signal. Signal found. Codex entry entity number XARs 000E01ACM55 AA1 Emperor 0. Searching signal database location. Found. Server node 337 Euro Palace main. Tracing codex. Neural pattern code recognized. Codebase value in alpha and beta wave pattern. Recording data to transfer unit. Recording telemetry data. Target acquired. Requesting a suitable clone. Found. Gene bank locker 77811. Clone pod enabled. Connecting. Service personnel reported in. System on standby. System ready. Pipeline good. Transfer rate test at 488 TBS. Connection stable. Brain pattern reconfiguration standing by. Test. Test complete. Verify all stable. Transfer ready to engage. Door is now active. Well, there we go. Ready to go. Just step through the door and try not to think about anything. It hurts less, the human said with a warm smile. The Emperor approached and stood in front of the door. Why are you doing this? He asked. We make it a point to save those who are in trouble. It's what we do, and what we've always done. You are in trouble. We have a solution. We are here to supply it. If this was the real world, and we encountered an alien civilization whose planet was about to explode, we would muster a fleet in days and get them all out of it as fast as possible. Our colonies, or alien colonies, doesn't matter. We help people who are in trouble. It's what we do. He said with a smile and carried on clacking. The Emperor stood by the door and thought about that for a moment. He wasn't wrong. Humans helping, for no reward, just to help, was a thing that happened all too often. We all braced for oblivion as the Emperor reached for the door, opened it, and walked through. Enjoy another amazing story. I looked at him, the gaunt, gorilla-like creature standing in front of me, imposing and strong. I smiled, not a friendly smile, not a diplomatic smile, but a smile of knowing. The smile I usually have when they are about to use the phrase, "I told you so," within the next few weeks. The poor bastard had just declared war on humanity. The same kind of warrior species that's stupid enough to think mankind's outstretched hand of friendship is a sign of weakness. The Lamartians, the Sakavar, the Skatani, and of course the Murano all failed in their attempts to conquer humanity. "What makes you think you'll succeed?" I asked the Umundi general as he looked at me. His expression changed. "Others have tried?" Meaningless. "They won't miss their vassals and we can negotiate payments for slaves," he replied. "So I take it. You didn't read the pamphlets you were sent at orientation?" "Not surprised. They never do." I maintained my knowing smile, looking forward to the expression of defeat that inevitably followed. "It matters not. Weakness will always be punished. Nobody will come to their aid. Nobody seemed to object to it anyway. That's what weakness does. You have nobody willing to fight for you," he replied incredulously. "You really are just plain stupid, aren't you?" I said, still maintaining my smirk. He glared at me, his expression changing from apathy to rage. "So when we are done with the humans, we come for you then. So be it." "Yup. Just as dumb as they all are. You have the same arrogance as the Sakavar did. Emphasis on DID. But go on, little ape creatures. Go on, wage your war, declare the humans weak. It's always so funny when the homeworld explodes." I said with my grin and laughed my way back into my office. We heard no more from the Umundi for a week after this. Humanity was still attempting to placate them or bring them to the negotiating table. The Umundi were, of course, not interested. As expected, I sat in my office, as usual, entertaining one of the ambassadors from the Thatandi conglomerate. "So," I said as I typed on my computer screen, "any thoughts on the Umundi-Terran situation? The betting markets have opened." One of her eye stalks peered up at me from her desk. "Not really. It's going to go the same way it always does. One Pyrrhic victory, followed by a disastrous defeat. It stopped being shocking after the third time it happened." "Indeed. We weren't expecting that last one, though. It still makes me laugh," I said with a chuckle. "You Serenai, so arrogant," she replied with a scowl. "We have reason to be. We apparently were the only ones intelligent enough to see humanity for its universal truth. The Great One really did make sure we were the ones holding the gun instead of dodging bullets. Like the Umundi are about to learn." I laughed again, seeing the betting markets going ballistic for the 5th time. "So, how much did you win the last time this happened? Betting odds still against the humans as usual?" she asked. "Of course. They always are. It's because they always seem to forget that humans are insane. For some reason. First bets on invasion is always against humanity. I never even bother with those. I always play the long game. They never fail. The bet's on what planet falls first. Though, that's a bit more in the air. Everyone's thinking on New London on one of the border zones. I know it's going to be New Kosovo, though. I'm aware of the Umundi's tactics. They will meet a rather nasty surprise." I laughed again, placing 20,000 credits on the Umundi's tactics paying off. "And what tactics are those?" she asked, now staring at me with her full attention. "A gambler never reveals his bets until they pay," I replied with a chuckle. "We are supposed to be allies, you know. Not when it comes to the betting markets we aren't." I replied with a chuckle and resumed more important work. 2 months. It's all it took. 2 short months. I was laughing all the way to the bank at this point, my bets paying off 20 times what I paid in. The Umundi were defeated. It played out exactly as I thought it would too, and damn did I make bank. I sat quietly in my office counting the zeros in my account. All legal zeros, of course. All my transactions were registered and approved. But so many zeros. I enjoyed one of the things humans call cigars, a strangely delightful creation, and reclined in my chair. My office door bashed open, and before I could respond, I was grabbed and hauled out of my desk. I recognized the form of the Umundi ambassador holding me by the collar. "Well, hello, Stakar. Good to see you too," I said, casually blowing a puff of smoke in his face. "How?" How did you know? He barked, squeezing my collar. Because it happens. All the time, you stupid idiot. You aren't the first one to see an outstretched hand of friendship and fail to notice the nuclear-powered dagger hidden behind it, I replied, and slapped him away from me. I got back on my feet and resumed sitting, in my seat puffing my cigar. I chuckled sadistically. I was genuinely enjoying the sight as I watched him slump on the ground and slowly climb into a chair. He sighed, put his head in his hands. We lost an entire legion. He groaned. I know. Amazing, isn't it? Predictably, the humans fell for your declaration and sent as many of their troops as they could to New Kosovo, especially after all the false signaling systems you used. Then you invaded New London instead, a small new colony on the outskirts. You predictably overwhelmed the humans, using massive numbers and strength as both a guarantee of success and also to intimidate the humans into doing something stupid, I said, puffing my cigar. He nodded. They still escaped. We expected to find slaves, or at least resistance. We found the planet abandoned, he replied. Ah, yes. You apparently believe humans to be as stupid as you. Consequently, you didn't know they evacuated border zones during war. Ha! The Murano learned that one the hard way, heh? I chuckled, remembering that battle. That's hilariously predictable. Murano fleets arrived above a colony world, a developed one, and found light resistance in space before landing an army, only to find the entire city's defenses entirely automated, costing thousands of lives in securing a city that had effectively been abandoned. They found the central command, expecting a military leader, and, instead, found their doom, I replied. The planet exploded. He trailed off. Yeah. Shame you didn't read the pamphlet. It would have told you about a policy they call Scorched Earth. You would have avoided the loss of your entire 7th, 6th, and 9th armadas, and the loss of your flagship. How many casualties was that? 2 million men, was it? Quite the sizable military, that. Lost in less than 15 seconds. Funny. The Murano learned that lesson too, except they were stupider than you and committed half their empire's military to Sarajevo too, then lost it when humanity's last. Warrior on the planet fell. They detonated their seismic bombs and a few nukes. That was messy, I replied, puffing my cigar. He collapsed back on the floor in despair. They blew up their own planet. Yeah. See, humans are more concerned about the lives of their citizens rather than land. They can settle almost anywhere, you know, humans being what they are, stubborn. So land is infinitely replaceable. The lives of those who live there, not so much. So in every planet they have, they put in some rather nasty contingencies before they even start their first farms. It's part of the human condition, really. They got there first, they won it, they settled it, blood, sweat, toil, tears, etc. They'll be damned before they let anyone take from them what they built. It's called Scorched Earth, you see. Deny resources to the enemy, so whatever they take from us, they can never use against us. They destroyed our first colony, just marbled it, he said, sobbing on the floor. Ah, yeah. They did the same to the Skitani, too. Skitani attacked them and made a public showing of executing some civilians. Humanity responded by using their top-of-the-line cloaking tech to turn their first historic colony, Marius VI, into an ash-blasted, irradiated hellscape with a few thousand nuclear warheads right in front of one of the largest navies in the galaxy. They usually do this as a show of force. They call it feck around, find out. The Skitani sure found out. Huh, I laughed again. Then they sent in those mutants, the freaks. We lost our army on Gahara. 15,000 men. Gone. To just 60 of them. Ah, yes. The Legionnaires. The Lamartians learned about them. They didn't last as long as expected. Huh. God, that was shocking. The Lamartians were the first to declare war, the first to ignore the blade hidden behind the smile, the first to lose entire armies and fleets to humanity's unforgiving nature, the first to have their capital invaded by a unit of legionnaires, then have their entire council slaughtered en masse in full public view as a result of the Skitani's victory in Cerus IV. Again, human cloaking tech and their mutant abominations. The Legionnaires. They showed the galaxy they had a few tricks hidden away and weren't willing to accept any loss. Lamartian Empire lost 2 fleets, 500,000 men and 2 planets, one of which they took from the humans. Ha! The look on their military leaders' faces when they signed the surrenders. That was so funny I lost my lunch from laughing so hard, I replied with a chuckle, finishing my cigar. He just continued to sob on the ground. Yeah, life's gonna be fun. Another vassal joins the Terran Empire. All we do now is wait for the chance for the next arrogant upstart to cast the first stone, only to realize humanity is now aiming an entire mountain at them in response. Never stops being funny. Every time one of their planets is taken, they expend every resource they can to evacuate their own people. Then while the enemy celebrates a paltry victory, the planet they just took just explodes, taking the invaders out with it. Scorched earth. Insane creatures, I said. What kind of world produces a race of such madness, he asked through his tears. A world called Earth. A Class 14 death world, that's what. It's a nice place, actually. Makes sense. But anyway, I believe you have an appointment with the human ambassadors this afternoon. Might want to bring cookies before they wipe out the 5th and 6th fleets, I said, turning my monitor towards him to show a human fleet on the borders of Umundi space. He looked, then resumed bawling like a toddler. He cried and crawled his way out the door, dragging himself along the ground as he sobbed towards the Terran Federation's offices. I simply shrugged, smiled, and lit another cigar. Thanks for diving into this story with me. Don't miss out on the next one. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think.